All right. Check, check, check. Czechoslovakia. How are you folks doing today? Good morning. It's an honor to see you on this lovely rainy day. We've needed the rain, so God is delivering on our prayers, which is awesome. I want to thank you all for your prayers, and stand here before you 2.5 weeks out from having neck surgery, and feeling great, and just so blessed for my family who has stepped up their game, not that they needed to help me out and help me around the house. And I'm sure some of you can relate when you're injured and you're kind of the head of the household and you've got that pride thing, right? And you turn the keys over and it's like, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, no, I didn't do that this time, I promise. So I'm just really blessed to be here today and just gratefully thankful for your time, and got a great show for you here today, so to speak. And just a couple of quick announcements. After our gathering this morning, we're going to have the Vertical Marriage Conference Committee is meeting. So if anybody has it in their heart they'd like to volunteer, because next November 21st, or this coming November 21st, we're going to be having our marriage conference here. I want to give a shout out to Pastor Cervic for his blessings and allowing us to use not only this facility today, but also the facility at our marriage conference. So I don't think he has to do a lot of volunteering is where I'm getting at here. So I appreciate the space. But if any of you would like to be part of that committee, we'll be meeting after the Oxstrong gatherings each Saturday, the second Saturday of the month until we get to our conference. So we're really excited about that. So if you have anything on your heart that you'd like to volunteer, set up, we're going to have music, food. It's going to be a wonderful thing. So that's my big reminder at this point in time. So as I was reading in 1 Corinthians this morning, I just decided it's one of those things like you open up the phone book. I said, what am I going to be today? And so this week I was like, well, what am I going to say? I've just got a lot on my mind, and I want to make sure I condense it because I'm looking forward to hear Lee McFee speak this morning, so I'll make it quick. And I don't know if you remember a couple of Oxstrongs ago, before the pandemic, when I stood before you and I was trying to go on a diatribe about social media and the emotional terrorism devices called phones that we're always looking at. And I just kind of shouted out to the men and said, look, the world's a great place. The grocery stores are full of food, the car lots are full of cars. I'll get to that. And, you can buy a house of your dreams, right? And here we are 18 months later, and it's like, man, it just feels like a great big fumble, You can't buy things. And, my message back then is that, let's not sweat the small stuff and be grateful for the things we have. And I just was reminded this week about that discussion and that statement that I made that, we need to really batten down the hatches and work together and be strong together. Because clearly the world is fragile. It's extremely fragile. Think about the people in Lebanon this morning that are waking up without any power. There are ships sitting in their ports that are full of oil that they're saying, until we get paid, no oil, no heat, no light. They can't get medicine. It's not just happening in the United States, it's happening everywhere. And so it's right here, right? Where's the biggest problem we have? It's right here. It's right here. It's our heart. It's God. We've got to invite God into our life. That's all there is to it. Because the world's a fragile place, but guess who's not fragile? God. God is strength. And so I implore you. And so as I was reading in Corinthians 1, it was just astonishing when God says, look, I'll take all the wisdom away, and I am the strength. And that's it. The smartest people don't really matter at the end of the day. And so you need to have your heart right. The other thing I'm going to say this morning is I'm just going to challenge you to create a tablet for yourself. And that tablet it's yours and yours only. And I want you to think about 5 things that you're grateful for every day. And I want you to wake up every day and I want you to just thank God and be grateful. And so I'll share mine with you. And so my number one, obviously, is I'm grateful for my faith. And then I'm grateful for my health, because a lot of that comes together magically and poetically. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my home, and I'm grateful for my career. And so every morning I wake up and I say those things. And so I want you to find those things that you're grateful for, and I want you to say those every single day, the first thing you think about when you wake up. And I think you'll find as you do that, that you're going to have great successes in your life. So I'm just so honored that I'm here. I'm so proud of what you men are doing. So when we do our questions and answers at the end, I want you to think about what God's been doing for you. And last night I got together with some folks, and I thought it was astonishing that in hearing a story, just overheard a story with one of the individuals speaking with my wife, and they said, I'm part of this prayer group, and, it's really great, and we haven't been together in 18 months, but the issue that I've been having lately is that all the stuff that's coming out there on the prayer group, on the chat line, it's just all tragedy. So think about something positive that you can share a story with. And so I'll challenge you at the end of this discussion to see if there's some things maybe that are, it's working on you. What's doing for you? What's Oxstrong doing for you? This is a great group of men. And again, we are a leadership group. So I challenge you to be leaders in our community. All right. Without further ado, this is a man that is a very close friend of mine, Mr. Lee McFee. He's had the honor of golfing with me. Notice he's not laughing. Really appreciate that, Lee. We've had many great discussions. We've ended up in it's kind of like Jared Johnson. Jared Johnson and I just kind of end up in these cycles together, right? And he's texted me one night. He says, "Hey, do you got an extra drum head for my son?" Yep, no problem. And he helped me, or he asked me to help his son set up his drum set when he first got it. He was affiliated with the Central Iowa Christian School. Works out at West Finch Auto Plaza, so I'm actually, ironically, his insurance broker. And honorably, done that a long time. We've had a lot of fun with that as well. This is a great man that I've, again, known a long time. Just absolutely solid. He's a ferocious optimist. I can always count on getting optimist emails from him, and so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Lee McFee, and he's going to go out and just get you all gunned up, and don't all squeeze through the door at once when you leave here this morning. So, Mr. McFee.
Because I'll be running, that's right. Thanks, Skip. All right, so Skip's already got all the challenges out there. Holy cow, I don't know. My my talk today, I know some of you guys, I don't know all of you. Like Skip's introduction, I moved here about 18 years ago and have been involved in not only the Optimist Club, Knights of Columbus, various charitable organizations. I like helping out. So my talk today is kind of my path, my wandering. I was talking to my boys about doing this, and I said, I'm not real sure what I should talk about. I kind of never really thought a lot about faith when I was growing up. We went to a Methodist church in a little town up in north central Iowa, Britt, and we went there. But it's kind of, you show up, and I never really understood like what was going on. My parents would be like, all of a sudden we wouldn't go anymore, and then I realized maybe it was because there was a new pastor or something, and so then we get to be about 12 years old. The rule was when you're 12 years old, you could decide whether you wanted to go to Sunday school or not, and they would be happy to take you if you wanted to go. So how many 12-year-olds in the room opted to go to Sunday school, right? If you had to tell your parents, and they had to drive 3 miles into town to take you from out in the country, right? So it never happened. So I never really, growing up, I didn't go to church. We went, just wasn't a thing, and I never really thought about things of God or any of that. I just sort of, moseyed along. I get to college, and of course at Iowa State, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and all kinds of people and things you can do, and things you shouldn't do, and things you should do, and so that was my freshman year, and back then The drinking age in Iowa was 18. So December of my freshman year in college, I turned 18. And we drank a lot of beer. That was like back in the days when in the residence halls, you had keggers, right? And, it was just, that's what you did. Did we make a lot of bad decisions? Did I make a lot of bad decisions? Yeah, unfortunately, that was just kind of the reality. And then, but again, I never really thought about, like, why is this? Is there some alternative to it, right? And then I met this lovely young lady, Jane, who she didn't drink. She I don't know what the heck she had to do with me, but we got along. We became friends. Spent a lot of time together, and she had this thing called growing up Catholic. And, she was kind of, in the mode of like, that's just what I am, I mean, there was no like deep theological conversations or anything. But then I sort of, after we got married, and thank the Lord that we had this, again, my parents, they lived in a town where they had a Presbyterian minister who they happened to like. And so thank goodness Joe was willing to like co-celebrate this wedding in the Catholic church that my wife grew up in. But as I'm telling you, my parents wouldn't have come, right? Because I grew up in a house with a mom from Oklahoma and a dad from Kentucky who grew up in the 1940s in the South, right? They didn't really have much time for Catholics, and never were like mean, but you definitely had this sense that, that just wasn't a thing. And so thankfully, this minister who knew me was willing to come and, kind of, I'm going to call it like bridge the divide there, right? Otherwise, they never would have come. And so then I started, as I got a little after we had been married, I decided that, I didn't have any faith. I didn't have any like church I went to. So, Jane, we had been going to church. I went to Mass with her, before we got engaged. I mean, I would go with her, but it was kind of just, to be there. I mean, I didn't really think about it. And it wasn't until after we were married, I decided to join the Catholic Church. And, it was kind of this wandering, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I don't have any idea one way or another. I have nothing I'm bringing to this. Well, then, so after I joined the church, and I said, there's got to be more to this. And I started like listening and reading and finding, people, speakers, Scott Hahn, Frank Sheed, Robert Barron, these people that could articulate, right, this Christian intellectual tradition that I had no idea even existed, right? That there's like people like Thomas Aquinas who can articulate like, a logical, reasoned existence of God, right? I mean, who ever heard of, right, the arguments from contingency? Like, whoa, this stuff's like, and then, metaphysics, right? The whole idea. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? It had to come from somewhere, right? And so all of these things, my brain starts going, wow, there's a lot of, material, a lot of thought, a lot of, ways to, come to understand that, in a reasoned and thoughtful way. And these things really started to change my view, existence and essence, right? All these things that are like, serious ideas, serious thought that our Christian tradition had built up over, centuries. The idea that, we've reduced everything nowadays, right, to scientism, right? Nothing's real unless we can prove it, right? Well, what's the underlying premise of scientific discovery? It has to have an order to it. It has to have an underlying rational relationship between things, right? When we go to study science, right? If everything's just random and there's no reason that, things happen, well, then what are you going to discover, right? Other than a bunch of random events. And so, these ideas all started to have a real impact on me. The idea of God's divine providence, right? That God exists over all of space and all of time, and that he presses upon the created order, right? You and I being here this morning in this place is part of God's divine providence. That God, and these concepts, God allowing, there's why do bad things happen, right? Why do bad things happen? There's books, different things. But, the Christian intellectual tradition around it is, God doesn't create evil. God allows evil to happen so that he can bring about goods that otherwise would not have been possible. Right? Can we always see that, in our life? Well, sometimes, but not always, right? My wife and I, we had been trying to have kids. We finally get pregnant. We have a miscarriage. 6 years, right? Pretty heartbreaking, devastating, right? We're able to get pregnant again. We conceive and bear a little girl, and 15 months later, we have another miscarriage. What is going on, right? Well, the fact that we'd had these miscarriages and we have one little girl and we've been, married for like 8 years at this point, opens up our heart to the idea of adoption. And so we find an agency in Indianapolis, and a young girl gets pregnant. And God allows my wife and I to adopt this little boy. And it turns out that he's got a learning disability and needs a whole lot of family to make it, to have around him. Is this part of my plan? Right? Not at all. But it's pretty obvious to me that God needed parents for this kid. And by opening our hearts to the idea of adoption, which I never thought about in my life, right? And so this idea of God's, allowing evil, bad things to happen so that other good things can happen, right, becomes pretty real. Can we always see it? We can't. But sometimes it takes a long time. Lots of other, things about how we think, our mind. The Christian intellectual tradition around the ideas of reason and will, our power to know and to love, right? What is it within us, right? That spirit that we are given that allows us, that essence by which we know and love, right? How does our will, how does our reason determine, right? Are we thinking about, are we paying attention to, what is going on in my mind, right? What's the most powerful thing that we have? Our mind, ideas. Where do they come from? Right? Where do they come from? They come, right, from our reason that allows us to understand, and in our Christian tradition, all right, reason is above will, right? We think about, we reason, and then we will ourselves to do something, right? We will what we do. In other traditions, right, the will is above reason. Have we thought about, do we understand that? Do we understand the impact that has on others' worldview, right? The idea that every worldview, I never thought about this, every worldview is shaped by what authority we assent our will to. Right? What has authority in my life? Right? Some, right, whether praise the Lord, it be Jesus Christ, and God, but, there are a lot of people whose worldview is shaped by politics, particular views, pop culture, whatever the case might be, right? And those worldviews, like Skip was talking about, right? How does that worldview then determine how do I think, right? And how do I, focus on, spend time, make sure that my focus, my center is on Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit that He's given to me to help me to make good decisions, to move my reason and my will, right? The idea that, we talk about love, the idea that God is love, right? God does not have an attribute of love. God is love. He wills the good of the other as other. How do you and I exist moment to moment, right? God wills our existence. As soon as we're gone from the mind of God, we're gone. Right? I mean, these things that, I was just like, wow, there's a lot in this, Christian intellectual tradition that, it's not just I have to wander through life. I just have to wander around and wonder what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to think. The challenge is that we all of us, all of our brothers and sisters, have some, version of these views that shape how we think, how we act, how we interact, right? What's our relationship to the God who created us? And so I listen to lots of CDs and read books, and my kids, poor children, have had to listen to these CDs on car trips for hours, and all of those things. This was before iPhone, so they had to listen. all of this information, all of this, arguments from contingency and on just blew my mind. The more I listened, the more I realized God's call to holiness, the constant reminder that Christianity is a relationship to a person, right? Christianity is not a philosophy. It's not, a set of rules. It's not a, thought pattern, right? It's a relationship to Jesus Christ. What do we worship, right? Where's the word worship come from? Worthship. What do I hold in highest worth? Right? What is the thing that is of highest worth in my life? Right? And if I don't know the answer to that, then I'm in trouble. And my question is, right, you know what the answer to it is. And if you haven't thought about what the answer to it is, what you need to do is to look at your life and what you do and the people in it and how you respond and how you interact. And what is it that I spend the most of my time holding in highest worth? And is that what it should be? Right? Love Skip's idea, right? Get the 5 things, right, written down. I was a little bit ahead of him. I already have it. It's in my daily prayer journal. It's got all 5 of them written right down on there, right? And, perfect. You think about that every day. If God is what is of highest worth, my relationship to Jesus Christ, what am I doing, right, to make that, to manifest that? That worship, and what do we worship? I guess, my challenge, I don't know if I'm supposed to make a challenge. My challenge to everybody is, what are we doing? What are you doing routinely to invigorate the spirit that God has given to you to know and to love? Right? The history and the teachings, the creeds of our Christian tradition are great. Do we have the good and the bad and the ugly in our Christian traditions? Unfortunately, yes, we do. Right? We hold in earthen vessels, right? That which has been given to us, and for all the effort, do we have a lot of good and holy people ministering? Absolutely. But we're all sinners, and, there are fallen ones out there. But we're all called by God when we're baptized into Him who spoke us into being. Are we spending time learning about that God? Thank you for your time. I hope appreciate it. Enjoy. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Lee, for that challenge today, and good to be in the Word all the time. So that is a great challenge. Thanks for joining us online. Hopefully you can make it here in person next month. See you later.